So now that we've said a couple things about what screencasting is and why it's useful, I wanted to do a little video on moving towards getting the software that you need to do screencasting yourself. Um, as I said before, I'm doing everything in Linux, and so the solution that I'm going to explain depends on Linux, and now I'm going to say a couple things about how to get the operating system that I'm using in the computer, and then in a later video we'll talk more about the software. So this is supposed to be completely about getting Ubuntu. So if that's something you're comfortable with, then skip this because I'm not going to say anything else. So what I'm running here, you can see is Ubuntu 10.10. You don't need to worry about that, assuming that you're not watching this video years from now. It's kind of an eerie thing to think about. Right now, and on January 28th, 2011, that is the version of Ubuntu that you will download if you just do the naive thing and go to the Canonical website and download the program. So let's go over to a web browser and see how we would install Ubuntu if we needed to, or if you need to, this is what you should do. So you just Google Ubuntu, and what comes up, okay, it's the Ubuntu homepage, so that's a good place to start. By the way, you might be wondering, what is Ubuntu, what's its relation to Linux? So um, Linux is a huge project that involves making a Unix-like operating system that runs on the kind of chip architecture that we use in PCs and home computers. And sometimes that software is packaged and put together in a certain way to be a particular functional unit, or I guess you could say like flavor or whatever. And so Ubuntu is just a flavor of Linux that's very user friendly. So this is the website. Okay, so there are two ways to put this on your computer, depending on how committed you are um, to using Linux, and I feel like I'm being too much of an apostle or something, but integrating it into your life. Um, so this button here is pretty obvious. It says download Ubuntu. So what happens? You get nice instructions about what to do. First you have to know if your computer has a 32-bit or 64-bit processor. If you don't know, just pick 32-bit. It won't matter very much. And you can see that the default option here is to get Ubuntu 10.10. So what's going to happen is if you hit the download button, you will download a file called an ISO, which is a disk image. And so once you download the disk image, what you'll need to do is burn the disk image onto a CD, or else put it on a USB drive. And then you reboot your computer from the CD or the USB drive with a disk image on it. And all this is completely safe. It's not going to start erasing your computer or anything. If you do that, you'll be running Ubuntu from the CD or from the USB stick. At this point, you've committed to nothing. Nothing is changed on your hard drive, and then you'll be presented with the option to actually install it. And if you choose to install the program, then your hard drive will be repartitioned, and Ubuntu will be written onto the new partition. And then when you start up your computer, you'll be given a choice of which operating system you want to use for that session. You can still use your old operating system if you want, or if you want to use Ubuntu, you'll just use the arrows to pick that option as the operating system that you'd like to load. There's another way to do it, which is a little bit more conservative, and that's to use this program called Wooby. So Wooby does not actually put Ubuntu on a new partition on your hard drive. It creates a file on your hard drive that is perceived by the computer as a device through some software trickery. Okay, so it's perceived as a device like a hard drive or a hard drive partition, and then Ubuntu is installed into that file. And so there's no repartitioning going on. When you run Ubuntu, if you install it on your computer using Wooby, it will be just a Windows program in disguise. It has very low probability of damaging information that's on your computer, and you can just uninstall it the way you would uninstall any other software if you decide that you don't want it for whatever reason. So it is virtually risk-free. Okay, so another advantage to doing things this way, you don't have to make a disk image and then burn a CD and then boot from the CD, which could be a little technically challenging. All you have to do is download this thing and you'll get a Windows installer, and then you just double click on it and click next a bunch of times, and then before you know it, you have Ubuntu on your computer. Okay, so those are the two ways to get Ubuntu. And so once you get it on your computer, I'm sure there will be a lot of exploring to do and a lot of things to find out. So let me say a couple of things about two skills that will be necessary to do the things that we'll talk about later for screencasting. So one thing that you need to be able to do is install new software, because we're going to be installing new software on the machine. So after you get Ubuntu 10.10, if you click on this thing in the upper left hand corner, it's kind of like the start menu in Windows. It gives you, a tree-like structure that accesses the important programs that are on your computer. Down at the bottom, you see Ubuntu Software Center. So Ubuntu is a little bit different from Windows in that rather than hunting software in arbitrary places on the internet and sometimes paying for it in stores and so forth, most of the software that you need you can download using this program, this download manager, and it has access to several software repositories that are in various places around the world. And so in Ubuntu, if you want a program, what you do is you open the Software Center, and then over here in the upper right hand corner you can see a flashing cursor. So in that field you just type the name of the program that you want. So one program that we're going to want is this program Journal that starts with an X for some reason. And so it does, you can see it's done a live search, and as I've typed the word journal, it's done a search through its database and it's found this program. You can see I already have it installed. And so that's not exactly what it will look like for you, because you will not have it installed yet. So let's think of some program that I haven't installed on my computer yet. Let's just look at something. Okay, so maybe I'm going to install a new painting program. So you can see here's GNU Paint, and it's a program that I haven't installed yet. So here's the install button. If you click this, it will put it on your computer. If you want to know a little bit more about the program first, you can hit the More Info button, and then usually you get a picture of what the application looks like and a description of what it does. And then here you still have the option to install it on your computer. It's very easy. Also, there is no possibility of accidentally downloading a virus. Ubuntu is virtually virus-proof because of the way it handles permissions, and also because the user base is so small that nobody is very interested in writing viruses that will run on this platform. So those are good things. Another thing that you will need to know how to do is open a terminal window. So I've put a little launcher button on my menu bar up here that will open a terminal window, but when you first install the operating system, I believe the way to open a terminal window is to go here to Applications and Accessories, and as an accessory you will have the ability to open a terminal. And the significance of that is the place that you will be able to enter command line commands and execute things from the command line when it's time to do those things. So I believe that is all you need to know about Ubuntu, except possibly some things related to the sound. I said that I was talking through a microphone, so what did I just do? I went to System, Preferences, and so this changes things about, fairly superficial things about the way things look when you're using the window manager or the desktop. And what I did was I went down to sound and I said that I wanted to change something about the sound. And so what I wanted to point out is that here on the input, okay, so there are two options, right? So one is my computer has an internal microphone, which I'm not using, but this is the one that's selected by default. Okay, so if you get a headset that has a microphone on it, you will have to come to this place to tell the operating system that you would like the sound input to come from your microphone. And so what you will do is click this little radio button that will be next to the device that you have that is functioning as your microphone. So those are the only things that I can think to say about Linux, and so I will end this video.